Okay, so who here has heard this saying? We're going to jump in today's dichotomy: treasures, eyes, and masters. Who's heard this saying? 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Anyone ever heard that before? Liz, do you know what that means? 6 of one, half dozen of the other? No? Okay. Who else wants to give a shot at what they think it means? All right, sir.
6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's the same, just looked at.
Right. He said it's the same, just looked at differently. If you've heard of a dozen, anyone heard of what a dozen is? That means 12. So half a dozen, oh, math and Sunday morning in church. Half of 12 is? Good. Some of you are like, I'm still, whoa, what? Okay, math. Half of 12 is 6. So they're saying 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, or 6 and 6. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. So many of us have heard some of that. There's no difference. There's no advantage between one or the other. We're essentially saying the same thing. So maybe in terms of shoes, you got Nike and New Balance, right? You go, oh, that's the same. It's Nike and New Balance. Maybe if you're asking something for supper, you say steak or chicken, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't care. To me, they're the same thing right now. Toyota or Nissan. Okay, now we might get into some opinions, right? Whoa, some people are like, no, what? That's not 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Hawaii or Fiji, I don't know. That's just any place like that would be great, Shell or Petro-Canada, where you get your gas, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. WestJet or Air Canada, wait, maybe not. Liberals or conservatives? Too soon? 6 of one, half dozen, too soon? Okay, all right. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other is in contrast to a dichotomy. Who's heard of dichotomy before? Not near as much who come to prayer, so that's good. Dichotomy. 6 of one, half dozen of the other is in contrast to a dichotomy, which means this: a great contrast or division between two entirely different things. So before we're saying Nike or New Balance, Toyota, Nissan, they're kind of similar. Red shirt today, blue shirt, whether you wore that shirt or another shirt, that's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But dichotomies are contrasts between things that are clearly different, and so good and evil. Who's ever seen a movie or cartoon and there's the little white guy on one shoulder and the red guy on the other? Yeah. That's a dichotomy. It's this one saying, don't do it, you can do it, it's like, right? Which one are they going to listen to? So good and evil, light and darkness, those are opposed, they're different forces. Success and failure, those are dichotomies. It's not like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I could succeed or I could fail. It's all the same thing. Hopefully not, right? They're dichotomies, happy, sad. How about this, liberals and conservatives? Are those dichotomies? Is that better for some of you? They're opposites. They're not the same. All right, that's the last we'll talk about politics today. So there's things in life, like I said, that are just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I talked about it even in terms of prayer. I don't get up every day. Some of you may, so I'm not saying you shouldn't or couldn't if God's directed you this way. But I don't necessarily get up every day. I've heard some people do this, but I don't necessarily, but say, God, what do you want me to wear today? Now, again, if you do that, great, but I don't do that. The black shirt and just pray and get up, like that. I don't do that. So I find that a bit of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Whether my kids and I go to Subway after or Mr. Sub after church on Sunday, there's not a lot of prayer involved with that from us. So that's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. However, the things in life that matter much more, because they're so diametrically opposed to each other, that to just say it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other is actually not going to affect you the same, and choosing one over the other could affect your life in a very significant way, right? Because they're a dichotomy. Dichotomy, the official definition, is a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented by being opposed or entirely different. I heard the vacuum go on over there. If you need to use the washroom, it reminded me I'm supposed to make an announcement. We're going back to our old washrooms today, so behind you to the right down this hall, we're having one flooded and backed up. So thank you to whoever did that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It happens. We got long pipes and sometimes we got to release them. That's all I'll say about that. Focus back in. Dichotomy, okay? So if you need to use your washrooms over there. So it's being opposed are entirely different things. When we get into a dichotomy today, I'm actually going to show you when two things are opposed, but on the surface they actually look the same. That's when it becomes even more difficult. Usually you can tell good and evil, light and darkness, okay, that's great. But what if two things kind of appear on the surface the same, but they actually are opposed to each other? We're going to talk a bit about that today, and Jesus is going to let us know some of them. But here's the main line. Take a picture, write this down. It's going to come up on the screen. This is the main thought for today's study is this: not all things in life are a dichotomy, but dichotomies determine all things in life. I know, some of you are like, well, that's, again, math, now this deep, so how? Okay, I'll explain that. Not all things in life are a dichotomy. I said that. Some are 6 of one, half dozen the other. But watch, but dichotomies determine all things in life. What you decide on your dichotomies determine the direction of your life. It's not on the 6 of one, half dozen the other. I wore a black shirt, could have been a red shirt. You know what? No big deal. But on the dichotomies, maybe even like I decided to come to church today or not come to church today, that could be a dichotomy. That could change your life. So dichotomies determine your things in your life. What you're living today at one point was a decision you made probably on a dichotomy of which direction you were going to go with your life. And much of our lives are determined around that. Should I marry Jane or should I marry Sally? They might not just be 6 of one, half dozen the other. Hopefully they're not. Right? Should I marry Frank or Billy? It's not just red shirt, black. Like, it might matter who you marry. Amen? Anyone who's married, it might matter. Anyone who, wants to be married, it matters. Anyone who once was married goes, it matters, right? They know. They're like, it was a dichotomy, and yeah. Okay, so we get that. Should I work in finance? Should I work in the legal field? You go, oh, it's just 6 of one. Maybe not. Maybe it's a dichotomy. Should I smoke that cigarette or should I drink that smoothie? Right? Over and over. That's a dichotomy. Should I have that one night stand or should I just say goodnight? Come on. Yeah. How many of you know there's probably some people that from a one night stand came a baby that changed your life forever? That was a dichotomy you probably didn't realize. Right? And so it wasn't just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Oh, yeah, no, it was important. Should I look at that website or should I read my Bible? Should I walk away or should I get into a fight? All things are not equal in the dichotomy of life. Deciding on the dichotomies can be difficult, right? And we don't always know what the future of our decisions on our dichotomies were. But can you imagine a life where you made every right decision on the dichotomies? Like where the red dot, it was always right? Like that seems almost impossible. But imagine if we started landing those, how much better life would be. A lot easier. We'd avoid this. We wouldn't have had this. I wouldn't have done this if I would have made this decision. So we have all these. And so Jesus actually helps us specifically with 3 dichotomies that might be tricky to help us determine the direction of our lives. He goes, I want to help you make decisions. And so he gives us these dichotomies. And so we're going to look at them today. Matthew 6, 19 to 24. Who's ready to read the word together? Thank you, Corey. Anybody else ready to read the word together? There we go. So if you've been here, I'm going to start reading it with you. It's going to come up on the screen, and then we'll read it together. I'll turn my mic off, and I'll jump in back at the end. Matthew 6, 19 to 24. It's going to come up. There we go. Let's start. Do not lay up for yourself. Money, 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 money. That's an old song, right? You can outserve God and money. So we see Jesus in here. I'm going to unpack 3 dichotomies that he tells us about, but they're not your typical dichotomies. Dichotomies usually are like clearly opposite, but I mentioned a few weeks ago how the devil works in kind of untruths or not full truths. He tells the truth but isn't always fully being truthful. That's sort of what happens here in even these. It's not always obvious that these 2 things that you're about to make a decision are actually diametrically opposed and will affect your life. And so here's the one that he says that on the surface seems similar but may not be. He says this, do not lay up for yourselves treasure. Someone say treasure. On earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasure. Say treasure. In heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. That's Matthew 6, 19 to 20. Here's the first of the 3 dichotomies Jesus teaches us about. Number 1, treasure, earthly treasure versus heavenly treasure. Earthly treasure versus heavenly treasure. But here's why it's similar. Both are actually treasures. It's not good, evil, light, darkness. They both look like treasure. And usually, if you find a treasure, say you're out there sailing across the ocean blue, and you got your pirate arm on and your pirate patch, and you find your treasure. Arr, matey, I found me my treasure, right? Nobody ever watched shows like that? Am I just alone here? Or are you just like, what's Pastor Derek doing today? Right? Usually, any pirate or anyone, what are they in search of? Treasure. And treasure was always good. So when he talks about treasure, on the surface, it can seem like it's the same or equally good things. But he talks about, hey, do not and do in terms of earthly treasure and heavenly treasure. It's a lot easier to decide on a dichotomy when it's obvious. Should I kill this person or not? Hopefully that's obvious. For some it's not, and look at their direction of their life's been determined. But there's many things hopefully that you go like, should I put unleaded or should I put diesel in this car? You know, like maybe some of that's not as clear. But you know, there's these dichotomies. But when it's treasure, that's a little harder. When it's gas, there's two options, but it's both gas. It can get a little tricky. So Jesus wants to help us out with these dichotomies, especially if they seem similar. And he's saying not all treasure is created equal. It's not 6 of one, half dozen of the other when it comes to treasure. In fact, there's different treasures that if we pursue them, it doesn't do well. So he's instructing us to listen and how we should lay up treasure. And we should do it in heaven and not on earth. How do you know if your treasure, if Jesus is telling us that, how can you tell if your treasure that you're living your life after or your treasure you're going after is heavenly and not earthly? You're like, great, Jesus, what is an earthly treasure? What's a heavenly treasure? Well, you just need to look at what he said. The three things that he talks about: moths, rust, and thieves. Those three things determine the difference whether your treasure is heavenly or your treasure is earthly. How many have heard of cloth moths? Anyone? Cloth moths? Clothing moths? There's a few different kinds, but those are the ones that kind of get in dark areas, maybe a little damp areas, and they get around clothing or material, and what do? They eat into and they put holes in them, right? Anyone got a moth problem in your house? No, I don't know. Then you get these things called mothballs. I don't know. We haven't had to deal with much of that lately. But moths come in and they try to eat clothing. And I thought of this as I was saying, why did he use moths? Well, guess what? They probably had a lot of problems with moths back then in these situations, so they would have understood it. But clothes can be symbolic of your mantle or your calling in Scripture. So he's talking about moths that come in and what? They eat away slowly at your mantle or your calling. Okay, hold that thought. Then we have rust. What does rust do? It eats away or it corrodes. It breaks down what? Clothes? Not usually. It breaks down what? Metals. It corrodes it. It gets wet, it gets wrecked, and it can break it down or eat away. So then I thought of what in Scripture is typically metal. We know cloth is clothing, mantle. Metal, I thought of this, is your armor or your protection. What does the Scripture say? Put on the armor of God. The armor of God was metal, your sword, your shield, the breastplate, everything like that. So what does rust do is it wants to corrode the thing that protects you. I'm going somewhere. Stay with me. Then we have thieves. What do thieves do? This word actually means embezzle or pilfer. Anybody pilfered before? That means to steal, plunder. Who's heard of the old Viking wise saying? Anyone heard of the Viking wise saying? Make sure you plunder before you burn. That was like one of their mottos in life. Some of you will get that later. All right, carrying on. Embezzle, pilfered. Thieves can be symbolic actually in this word of false teachers. Okay, so watch. If I put this together, we got this idea of mantle, clothing eating away, corrosion on armor, protection, thieves coming in, false teachers. Here's what I think earthly treasure and heavenly treasures are. Earthly treasures are things that you value, that eat away at your calling, destroy your ability to overcome, and steal God's truth from you. If you take a picture, write that down. If it's long, it'll be in your notes if you have them. So when Jesus says, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, not on earth, this is what an earthly treasure, this is what the difference. They're both treasures, but they're opposite, because earthly treasures are things you value in your life, things you find important, decisions you're making, things you're going after that actually eats away at your calling, your purpose, what God has, your God designed for you. It destroys your ability to overcome, and it steals God's truth from you. We've been given the ability to overcome. Come on. But if we continue to invest in things, earthly things, they can begin to corrode your ability, your idea, or your knowledge and willing or understanding that you can overcome. It can go work against your defense system that God's put in, the armor of God on your life. There's certain decisions you're going to make that aren't going to be helpful for your calling, what God's called you to do, isn't going to be helpful for your ability to overcome. And I even include that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. How many of you want to be overcomers in all those areas of your life? God's commanded us or told us we can be that, but when we invest in earthly treasures, that can come in and corrode that. And then the enemy's always trying to steal truth from you, right? A thief coming in trying to steal truth, trying to make you question the word, question your faith, question your belief system, question things. And so there's people in your life that you might have in your life that they're there and they're not helping you with your calling. They're not helping you with overcoming, and they're not helping the word of God get truth in you. So Jesus says here, this isn't just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. He's saying, if there's people in your life and if there's places and spaces in your life that lead towards this, it's going to be problematic because it's going to become an earthly treasure that doesn't last. Then there's heavenly treasures, are the things that you value that enhance your calling. They develop your ability to overcome and increase God's truth in your life. So Jesus says, lay up treasure. Plan this. Hoard up this. Put these kind of people in your life. Make decisions that do what? Value these things that enhance your calling. People that come and say, I see what God put in you. I see this gifting in you. Come on, let's rise up. Come on, you can do it. You don't have to be defeated. Come on, that anxiety, you can put it on to God. He's given you the peace. He's put the mind of Christ in you. Come on, there's some truth in the word. Let's dig it out. You're going through this situation. Come on, let's look at that today. You need those people. You need the places and spaces like that in your life so that what treasure is goes with you eternally. So if you find yourself struggling with calling, if you find yourself getting overwhelmed sometimes or on a regular basis or struggling with the truth, you got to go, what am I valuing? And who are the people in my life that maybe are leading me astray from that? So Matthew 6:21, we got to move along. Jesus says this, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I'm going to be honest. I think most of us, including myself, really read this flipped. We read it, for where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. Like if my heart's there, I must value it. Like wherever I put my heart, my treasure will follow. Jesus says it's the actual opposite. If I put my heart here, my treasure will follow. No, he says, whatever you treasure, whatever you value, the things that you treasure, guess what? Your heart follows in behind. See, we think our heart leads our treasure, but Jesus says our treasure leads our heart. Our treasures lead our heart. You can get around someone for a period of time, and eventually you can know where their heart's at by watching what they value. Right? You can watch a husband and wife, and you can tell very quickly whether their heart's in the relationship by how they value each other. Right? And so we think that if we heart's right, the value falls in place, the treasure falls in place. No. The value, we have to purpose to treasure and value certain things. And then the heart follows in line. And then he gives us this warning for where your treasure is. I put it as a warning about treasure. Your heart follows what you value most. Your heart follows what you value most. If you stop valuing and putting attention and seeing your spouse as a treasure, guess what? Your heart becomes distant. So your heart follows what you value most. And if you value things of this earth most, guess what? Your heart's going to be led away from God. But if you value things of heaven most, that will lead your heart to God. Okay, ready? Here's the strong statement of this point. You cannot value God and have your treasure in earthly things, because it will pull your heart away. You cannot value God and have your treasure in earthly things. This is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, it looks like it's treasure. The enemy's going to try to get you convinced to say, hey, guess what? It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. When it comes to treasure and what you value, it's not. They are dichotomies, and you are going to choose blessing or cursing. You're going to choose life or death. He says these are dichotomies, so make sure you value the right things, and you have the people in your life that help you value the right things. Okay, number 2, we got to move along. Derek's taking too long. Pastor Derek, speed it up. I don't know. Number 2, eyes. Eyes, healthy eye versus bad eye. Or in baseball, good eye, good eye. If you ever played baseball, right? Rob, that's what they say when they throws a pitch and they don't swing at it and it's just outside the zone. Good eye, good eye. Healthy eye versus bad eye. Matthew 6:22-23 says this. The eye is the lamp of the body. Thank you, Jesus. That's very helpful. It lights up the body. What does this mean? We'll get into it. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. Again, we see this dichotomy, but if you're not careful, you see, it's just one eye over the other. I'm using my right eye or my left eye. It's all the same. No, it's not. Jesus says, and when it comes to your eyes, and I'm going to get into this, it's not all the same. Because he says this, the lamp of the body. What is that word body? Is this? It's the Greek word soma, which means the body of both men and animals. That makes sense. But watch this. I hadn't seen this before. The root word of soma is a Greek word that is prevalent in church, if you've heard any Greek words, but is one that if you call yourself a Christian, you already did this word, which is called sozo. The root of soma is sozo, which is the word where we get salvation. So he says the lamp of the sozo is the eye. The lamp of salvation, the light of salvation is this eye. Sozo means to save, to keep safe and sound, to rescue from danger. It's where we get the word salvation, which means heal, preserve, do well, make whole. The lamp of the thing that makes you whole, that makes you well, that keeps you safe and sound has to do with these eyes. Who remembers the song, Careful Little Eyes, what you see? For the Father up above, he is looking down in love, so be careful, little eyes, what you see. Jesus probably made that right after he said this. No, I don't know. He put it on Spotify, and we have it today. So what helps determine our health, our preservation, our wholeness, our wellness in our lives is the eye and what we let into it. I don't know if I often track health in my emotions, health in my soul to what I've looked at for the day. Come on. Health in my body. How many of you know you see that thing on the counter when you're shopping or you go by the food place? Who's ever gone grocery shopping hungry? It is way more expensive than going grocery shopping full. Come on. A lot more snackies end up in your bag than when you're full. What is that? The eye. You look, and then you start thinking about what I could do with that. I get home and I'm going to have that chips and I'm going to relax, And so you have to be able to look at it. And so some of our health, we may be tracking to it to what we're letting our eyes focus and look on. Who's heard of the eye gate? Ear gate? Watergate? No, that's before your time maybe. Is that Nixon, right, or something? I don't know. Okay. But the eye gate, what's a gate? Anyone want to just shout out an answer? What is a gate is or what does it do? Like a door? Entrance. What did you say, Jake? Okay, divides two places. Okay. A gate is, I'm surprised one of you didn't grab, who had the notes, just say exactly what I said. I'm glad you didn't. It opens and closes to let something in or out. I have a gate. I park my car in the backyard. We have a driveway pad in the backyard, and I have a big two-part gate with wheels or whatever, or big hinges, and I close it at night to make sure nobody gets into our backyard, and then I open it during the day. Fortunately, some people come in the day and steal things from our yard here and there. We have cameras now. If you're watching, we'll catch you, okay? But it lets people in, and the gate is there to determine what can come in, what can come out, to protect things, to guard things, all of that, right? So we've got this thing called the eye gate, which we know, but there's a thing in sound called a gate that we use, and I'm going to give a demonstration, so hopefully this isn't too techy for you. But did you know in sound there's things called gates in sound? And do you know what gates do? They determine what type of sound gets to come into a mic and be amplified. So I'm going to turn off this one now, Gerald. And I'm going to go to this one. This is the handheld we have. And it determines, right now there is no gate on this mic, so I can talk and it's pretty loud. But with no gate, I can start whispering. And I can talk pretty quiet. And it's still amplified, right? Live stream, you'll probably get this a bit more. But watch, even with this, if I put this here with no gate, and I clap here, can any of you hear coming through the sound? You might not be able to hear quite as good, but like in the live stream, because it actually is, but because you can hear it in here, it might be difficult to tell, but can you kind of hear it picking up? Okay, so this mic here, now this isn't a omnidirectional mic. If I had a choir mic, it would pick up sound even more. I won't get too techie. But from here, if I yell, hey! Did it come through the mic? You can kind of pick it up, right? So what happens is, without a gate, sometimes we have several people singing on stage, and if there's no gate, that means any sound that is produced on stage. The biggest difficulty we have is here, because we have 4 or 5 mics in the drum area, specific for a certain mic to pick up a certain sound so it goes into the mix and sounds better. The problem is when you have everything playing and there's not a gate on it, then it picks up all the other instruments or all the other sound, and a mic that wasn't intended to pick up this sound can pick it up and starts to amplify it. And what happens is the sound starts to become muddy, distorted, or unclear. Okay, so we're going to show you. Gerald's going to turn on the gate at one of the lowest levels. So once the gate's on, is it on now? Okay, so he's got it at the lowest level. So if I start getting quieter, let's see if we hear it. We kind of tested it slightly. So if I go down to a whisper. Whisper, there we go. Then I start talking and it comes through. What's happening is now it's got a gate on it so that some of the softer sounds aren't coming through, and so it's starting to close to allow what it's supposed to come through, so other things and other sounds that are not supposed to come in won't come into the mic and get amplified. Come on. Okay, so just for the sake, and so even with this, watch, if you throw that gate on and I start clapping over here, so already that small gate negated the sound from that, right? Okay, Gerald, just crank it up a little bit here. So I'm going to just talk like that, and so as it's starting to cut in and out. There we go. So he closed the gate more. So now I'm going to have to go this loud to get it through. Right? You're like, what's that? I'll give you the point now with that. Okay, so we're talking about eye gates. That's a good demonstration of that. Watch. Because what happens is if you have the gate, watch, set too strong, nothing gets amplified in your life. There's no reflection of something in your life. You don't let anything go through. You sit in your house and you're scared to share. But at the same time, watch this. If you don't have any gate on your eyes in your life, then what happens is it starts to pick up the sounds and the things around from it that weren't meant to come into it. And when the sound of your life starts to get amplified, it's muddy, unclear, and not distinct. So when Jesus talks to us about eyes and says, it's the light, it's the lamp of the body. He's saying what you put into your eyes comes into your life and gets amplified, and everyone sees it living out in your life. And if you don't have a gate on your eyes to be closed or open to determine what comes in, then things and distractions and other things come in, and it makes your life look muddy and not distinct and confused, and it's not clear and distinct. But the more closed you set your eye gate, the more particular you are with what you let into your eyes, the correct sounds, the correct things will be taken in and amplified. Watch this. And the quality of the sound becomes clear. And so if the gate on the mic is set correctly, the sound of your system is amplified properly. But watch. If the gate on your eyes is set correctly, the sound of your life is amplified properly. I'm going to say those two again. If the gate on the mic is set properly, then the sound in the system is amplified properly or set correctly. The sound in the system is proper. It's clear. It's distinct. Rob said it sounded good today. Hopefully it did, right? It's not always. We're trying to figure it out. This building's got lots of that reverb. But if the sound or if the gate on your eyes is set correctly, guess what? The sound on your life is amplified properly. What should be amplified? God. If you're a Christian, if you're a Jesus follower, you should look like Jesus. It should be light and not darkness. So Jesus says, if the eye that is in you is what? Dark. If the eye that is in you, the gate is set to open. That's what he's saying. But if the eye that is in you is set to have some things closed, then you're going to amplify the light properly, because what you take in with your eyes will be amplified in your life. This is a strong truth. I had to check myself while preparing for this, going, maybe there might be some things I need to stop watching. Some video, I'm like, oh, it's harmless. It's only got a few swears or this, that. Maybe there's some things I have to stop looking at. Because it is important, because we just think, oh, it's just the eyes, it's not dichotomy, it's not this, but I don't know how much it's affecting my amplification of what God wants to amplify in my life. And it's making it muddy. Come on, if you struggle with stress and anxiety, stop looking at all the news and the bad reports. Come on. Right? If you're worried about what people think of you, stop looking at social media and comments about your posts. I heard this on, I think it was American Idol, Carrie Underwood, she's on there now, and there was a girl that performed, and just the feedback she got, I don't understand. Some people they think too highly of themselves, and they think their opinions matter too much. And so they post in situations, I'm like, why do you even think you have a right to post on that? But anyways, she came up with this saying. She said, post and ghost. That's what they do. Post and then just ignore it, because everyone's got that. And so if you deal with anxiety and stress, don't read that stuff. Get it out of your eye gate. Famous people, they just know this. Post and ghost. Don't worry about it. Because what you take in with your eyes will be amplified in your life. And Jesus says this, if the light is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Matthew 6:23. If the eye gate is set to open, how great will the things in your life be amplified that aren't great? Come on. If you take in a lot of lust images, there's many, many people that can talk about the amplification and how that wrecked their life. How great can you go? If there's no gate on your eyes, guys, be careful, because there's no stopping where it can go. So warning about your eyes. If what is coming into your eye gate is left unchecked, how much will you lack life and clarity? If your life feels like it's anxiety, full of noise, no clarity, I think you may want to go back and go, what am I watching? What am I reading? What am I looking like? If you deal with fear, stop watching horror movies. Right? Okay. Someone say dichotomy. The dichotomy of your eye determines your life. The dichotomy, I didn't say this before, of your treasure determines your life. Remember I said, not everything's a dichotomy, but dichotomies determine your life. What you decide around your treasure and your eyes will determine your life. That's what Jesus says. The third thing, and we're wrapping up here, I kind of put two, flesh versus spirit, God versus money. We're talking about masters. Flesh versus spirit, God versus money. Matthew 6:24, Jesus tells us this. He says this, no one can serve two masters. We see this last dichotomy in reference to a master. Again, treasures were the same, eyes were the same. You go, it's just one master. That's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Jesus says it can't be. It isn't. You can't just, it's not just, it's no big deal. I got this master, maybe I serve this master on the side. I serve God here and I don't go after the things of God here. I come to church on Sunday and lift my hands and everything's good, but I go home and, he says it's problematic. They're not the same, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They're dichotomies. They're opposed to each other. They're going to cause problems. It's not 6 of one, half dozen of the other when it comes to who is your Lord. There's no fence riding when it comes to who's your Lord. Right? Why? He tells us why. You ready? Here's why. He goes, I'll tell you why. For either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. See, sometimes I think we wish we could love both. And what I put here is flesh and spirit. Right? Come on, we're like, well, I just want to do this. It appeals to my flesh, but I still want to live for God. Right? I still want to go for him. God's my Lord, but no, I want to do this, right? Or I want to do this, or I don't want to give God this part of my life. Come on, we're all there at times. God, you can have it all except for this. Come on. And so what we think is like, we can do this, but what ends up happening, Jesus says, if you try to live a life between flesh and spirit, Paul said this is a big struggle. He said it in Romans 7, 15 to 20, 8, 1, Galatians 5, 16, it's in the notes. You can unpack that as bonus content if you want. He talks about the struggle between flesh and spirit. He even says sometimes, I want to do what things of the spirit, but I do what my flesh wants. And other times I don't want to do what my flesh wants, and I end up doing it, and so there's struggle. But we also get told that if you walk after the spirit, you don't fulfill the lust of the flesh. And we also say there's no condemnation for those who walk in Christ Jesus. And so there's this idea of flesh and spirit, and it's a big struggle, but they're not the same things. And what happens is when we're Christians going, we want to live for God, but then we're trying to half live in, the other side too, the condemnation that the devil heaps on you, and as Jesus says, the hate that comes. And I know I've seen people do this where they're living for God, but they're struggling with something, and they come in and you can feel it. They're dealing with hate, they're dealing with condemnation, and they go like that, and people can't live like that. So often what ends up happening is they look and go, okay, I can't deal with this condemnation. And because they haven't fully given their lives to God or Jesus, who is meant to take the blame, Rob talked about it, we did communion today. He's meant to take the condemnation, but if he doesn't have that place in your life and you don't know how to give it to him, you're sitting there with it, you're trying to offload it. I've watched people come in and they're just struggling, and I go, why are you struggling? Like, God should be freeing you, and they're dealing with something in their flesh, and they're trying to have two masters. And Jesus says, if you try to live that way, inevitably you're going to hate one and love the other. You're going to be devoted to one and despise the other. You can't be devoted to two things. You can't try to love it. It's going to be a dichotomy within you, and it's going to cause problems in your life. And eventually what ends up happening is because you can't unpack this and you're not willing to let it go or give it to Jesus, you sit there and eventually you kind of turn and you end up blaming things on God and the people of God and church and things like that and leaving it all. Why? Because Jesus says you'll hate one and love the other. So it's not a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Hey, you can live for God and you can live for the flesh here. You can go after the spirit here and go after the flesh here. Eventually, it will tear your inside apart. Right? And so you don't want to live like that with two masters, because we want to be devoted to God and we want to love God. Now, that's not to say you're going to be perfect. Any perfect people in this place? If you put your hand up, you're a liar, and then you're not perfect, and then we're good. Right? Like, no one's going to be perfect, but there's that. And again, I understand. Can I say this? Because I don't want it to come condemning. There's a difference with somebody struggling with sin, their flesh, and knowing they are, and saying, God, I need your grace, but not fully delivered. And someone who's living in sin, but saying, I'm good with it. Does that make sense? So I'm not talking to you if you're like, man, I know this has been an area in my life, but I know I need deliverance. I'm trying to walk it through. I don't do well. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's not who I'm talking about here, right? We're all going to have to, until the other side with heaven, deal with our flesh. And the more we grow, the more we put it under. But I'm talking about someone who's just like, you know what? Yeah, it's good. I'm good with this. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's not. Okay? So spirit and flesh. And then Jesus says this statement. I'm going to talk about it, then we're done. He says this. Here's his example. You cannot serve God and money. Like, I did spirit and flesh. Jesus, one example of two masters. He goes right to the heart. Jesus knew culture back then was going to be the same as culture today. The two things that most of us are going to struggle with in terms of making master is God and money. He picked it out of all the things he could have said. He could have just said right and wrong, light and darkness. He said God and money. Because Jesus knew what we all intuitively know, that so many people in life, if you're not a Christian, I would venture to say almost every decision is based on money. But even Christians, Christ-like people, Jesus is warning, saying, it's not 6 of one, half dozen of the other when it comes to God and money. It's a dichotomy. You can't just say, well, I serve God here, make decisions of money here. It's not, because Christians included, I think this, many more people make big decisions in their life based on money than based on God. That's why Jesus was warning. It was a problem of his day as well. He's saying these are dichotomies. We got to figure this out. We got to figure it out with treasure. We got to figure it out with our eyes. And we got to figure it out with God and money. Many more people, Christians included, make decisions based on money rather than God and his purpose and will for their lives. This job gets me more money. I've heard it so many times. This job gets me more money. Oftentimes, we as Christians, what we'll do is say, so it's God's will because it's more money. It's providing more opportunity. It's an open door. I think I've shared this before, but just because it's an open door doesn't mean God opened it. Just because it's more money didn't mean God provided it. What if it was a distraction from the devil to get you away from what God had for you? And because we aren't sure who our master is, we pursue it. I'm not saying that God won't use decisions, and he will bless you, but you better be sure it's coming under God being your Lord and master and not making a decision, because I've watched it over and over again, and oftentimes it ruins people. The devil would give you $1 million if he knew it could ruin your walk with Jesus. Right? So just because it has more money, it's a job, it's more opportunity, it must be God. Not necessarily so. I really want this. You put your item that you really want. Out of us, hey, anyone got a wish or want list, right? I want this. I could really use this house, a car, this, that, the other. So I'm going to max out my credit card. I'm going to take all my stuff to the pawn shop. Come on. I'm going to go to rent to own to get that TV, even though it's 38% interest and it's going to cost me a lot more, because I need a TV to watch the playoffs. Nobody here? Yes. No, that's not a good thing. You don't want to go to rent to own for that, right? I need money. I got this big bill, so I'm going to go to the casino and gamble. Yay.
Lost that money already.
Right? See, we want big items that cost big money, and we want to pursue it with debt. The problem is, and then I'm done, money is a terrible master because it will always cost you more than you wanted and satisfy you less than you desired. Money is a terrible master because it will always cost you more than you wanted and satisfy you less than you desired. Because you're like, if I could only have that kind of house, and then you get that house and go, well, then I want this house. I get this kind of car. Then I want this car. I get this kind of motorbike. And then you want this one, right? We got to be careful because it never satisfied because it wasn't intended to be, and it ends up costing you more. What does it cost your life, the purpose potentially God has for you, if you pursue it. Now, God will bring you these things, but he has to be the master and Lord of them. Right? But it's going to cost you more than you wanted, and ultimately satisfies you less. There's people, listen, I don't want to, life is better with money than no money. Like, I don't want to come across as that. Like, I've lived with every penny having to be counted, like every penny, and then lived with, every quarter being counted. Counting quarters is nicer than counting pennies. But if it drives you and determines the decisions of your life, it will eventually move you away from God. Here's the warning about masters. If you are making decisions based solely on money, you're not serving God. He straight up says you can't serve God and money. If you make decisions based on money, and this is where so many Christians get it wrong, you're not serving God. It may seem like it for a while, but eventually those are going to be at odds with each other. You can only have one Lord, one master that determines the direction and decision of your life. The dichotomy of masters determine your life. So, closing, just a reminder as we summarize. 3 dichotomies we're watching for. Where's your treasure? What kind of eyes do you have? And who is your master? So go home and ask yourself this. What do I value? What do I value? If you're not sure, check what you spend your money on and what you spend your time on. That tells you what you value. Okay? What do I let my eyes take in? That you know already, like we know. What is there some things I should be taking in less with my eyes that's a distraction, that causes me anxiety, that I shouldn't be looking at, makes me have lust issues, all of that, right? What are my eyes taking in? And does money make my decisions? Okay? Good? Good, good.